Ready to open the hood? Usetool for the tutorials.
And for car parts, the right idea is the Mr. Auto app. Easy, fast, and with better prices than on the website.
You will find the sash shock absorbers used in the video through the link in the description. Turn your engine off. Pull up the handbrake. Pull on the bonnet release lever. And open the bonnet. To disassemble the front shock absorbers, it is first important to remove the windscreen frame and the windscreen wipers. Before removing the windscreen wipers, place adhesive tape in order to keep a precise indication of the location at the end position. This will make it possible to correctly position them when reassembling. Remove the nut covers from the wiper arms and using a ratchet and a 16-gauge socket, loosen the nuts. Remove the windscreen wiper arms by making small movements up and down. If they're not coming out, we recommend taking a windscreen wiper remover to facilitate the process. Take out the waterproofing joint on the windscreen bay by pulling it upwards from one end to the other. Remove the side covers. Now, remove the windshield frame. You can now access the heads on your car's shock absorbers. Remove the protective cover from the shock absorber head. Using a 6mm Allen key and a 21mm spanner, unscrew the upper shock absorber's head retaining nut by a few threads. You can also use the specific tool used in the video, which will make your task much easier. In order to change the front shock absorbers on your vehicle, you must lift the front of the car and remove the wheels to have complete access to the suspension system. Loosen the stud bolts on the front wheels. Raise the front of the vehicle and put it in the two-axle stance. We strongly suggest watching the tutorial raising your vehicle safely before carrying out this step. You will then be able to take off the wheels. Don't forget to slide them under the vehicle. During this operation, you will be working on the front axle of your car, so it is advisable to perform a parallelism afterwards. Now you need to remove the steering ball from the stub axle. As the components to be removed are very often C-stub, don't hesitate to brush and to use penetrating oil to facilitate the operation. Using a 16mm spanner, release the holding lug nut on the tie rod end. Using a ball joint remover, remove the ball joint from the stub axle. In order to change this type of shock absorber, you need to remove the hub nut. Insert a thin flathead screwdriver that can slip in between the two sides of the disc. With an iron bar and a 32mm socket, unscrew the nut on the hub, then remove it. You now have to remove the upper ball from the sway bar link. To do this, we recommend watching the video How to Replace the Sway Bar Link Citroën C3. Brush the screw of the shock absorber base and spray it with degreaser. Then, using a 16mm spanner, unscrew the nut on the base of the shock absorber. Then, remove the screw. Remove the ABS sensor cable. Unclip the brake hose. Brush the bottom of the shock absorber and spray it with penetrating oil. This will help with the future manipulations. Now you need to remove the ball joint from the axle stub's control arms. To do this, we recommend watching the video How to Replace the Control Arm Citroën C3. You can now remove the cardan shaft from the stub axle. Prepare a stable, elevated surface to place all of the stub axle once you've removed it. Using a hammer, strike the axle stub to release the base of the shock absorber. Finish unscrewing the lug nut from the top of the shock absorber. Hold the shock with one hand and finish unscrewing with the other. Remove the shock absorber. In order to change the shock absorber, you must now separate it from the spring. You can find a description of the tool used in the video, which we think is most adapted to the operation. Careful, pay attention as you compress the spring. This is not without risk and should be undertaken paying very careful attention. Install the shock absorber on the tool, then tighten the mobile flange against the spring, controlling its position carefully. Check that they're properly held by the locking studs, then slowly compress the spring using the socket wrench and the appropriate socket. Once the shock absorber is free in the spring, you can use a 19mm offset wrench and a 6mm Allen key to unscrew the suspension strut support bearing. In the most extreme cases, you have to use an impact wrench. You can also use the specific tool used in the video, which will make your task much easier. Then remove the suspension strut support bearing assembly. Remove the shock absorber from the spring. Remove the sleeve.
All parts used in this tutorial are supplied by our trusted partners. These partners also help us create as many video tutorials as possible. Check them out in the description below.
You will find the sash parts and products used in the video in the link in the description. Before installing the new shock absorbers, it is necessary to prime them by pressing the shock absorber rod vertically so that the gas and the hydraulic fluid are separated. Take your new shock absorber, unscrew the lock nut on the stem. Then install the shock absorber stop, the protective sleeve. Position everything in the spring. Pay careful attention to place the bottom of the spring so that it supports the shock absorber flange. Then install the upper shock absorber support, the washer, the shock absorber mount, and finish by screwing the nut on the shock absorber mount. Tightly fix in place using a 19mm offset wrench while holding the stem with a 7mm Allen key. Unscrew the spring compression tool, paying attention to the position of the spring on the lower shock absorber support. You have now finished preparing the new part. Clean the bearing surface of the shock absorber mount with a brush. Insert the shock absorber starting from the top part. Replace the top shock absorber mount and then screw the shock absorber head back on, first by hand. Go ahead and lightly grease the base of the shock absorber. Sand and grease the inside of the stub axle to help facilitate the reinsertion of the shock absorber. Thread the shock absorber base into the stub axle. The bottom positioning pin of the shock absorber base must be inserted into the opening of the stub axle. Roughly tighten the screw of the shock absorber base. Grease the end of the drive shaft. Insert the cardan shaft into the stub axle. Replace the control arm ball in the axle stub. Then screw it back in. Finish off the tightening with a torque wrench. Clip the brake hose back in. Clip the ABS sensor hose back in. Replace the steering ball in the pivot. Finish off the tightening with a torque wrench. Put the sway bar link back in place. Finish off the tightening with a torque wrench. Tighten the nut of the shock absorber base with a torque spanner. Repeat the screwdriver technique to block the rotation of the disc and to be able to lock the hub nut. Finish off the tightening with a torque wrench. Secure the hub nut with a hammer and chisel. Put the wheels of the vehicle back on and lower it to the ground. Finish screwing the nut on the shock absorber head. Finish off the tightening with a torque wrench. Put the plastic cover back on. Put the windscreen bay back in place. Replace the side covers. Replace the seal. Reassemble the windscreen wiper arms without exaggerating when tightening them in place. Operation completed.
Hi, it's Theo from Usetool. I hope this video has helped you a lot in your car maintenance. We would be super grateful if you could spread the word so that we can produce even more tutorials. Simply give us a like, a comment, and hit that subscribe button. It really helps us boost the channel and help the whole community. Thanks a lot and have a great one.